Okay, so today we're going to talk about Aeon, Aeon. Just a bit of a, yeah, different spelling for what you'd expect it to be. But anyway, this is a magical patch. They're all magical patches, but you know that this is one of the two that if you can't do any of the others, you use this one. And the reason why this is so important for us is because it does two distinctive things. Number one, it reduces the inflammation in the body. The second thing is because it's reducing the inflammation, it's actually lowering our stress levels. So it's also why it's also known as the happy patch, because it's increasing that dopamine and the serotonin. But, and I'm going to go to my notes because I've got so many things and I want to try and keep it fairly concise. Um, Now, what I will say to you is that David has done, obviously, they've done loads and loads of clinical studies. This patch, I think, came out in about 2010-ish. And what he said, so it's way before the X39, and he said a lot of people built their business on this patch and IceWave, those two patches, which when you think about it, it makes a lot of sense because this is reducing inflammation. It's the happy patch, as we know, so that the IceWave then can go in and reduce pain or whatever. And he said that most people would put it on the back of the neck and then IceWave, obviously, wherever it's needed in the body. And that's what a lot of people literally just use those two patches to create a really good business. And you can understand that because who at some point does not have pain and who does not have any inflammation?
Mm.
Nobody. Everybody has inflammation of some sort or another, depending on what level it goes to. And we know that pain is, and inflammation is like a block of energy. It's energy that's just stagnant and needs to shift and move. So some of the, actually, interestingly, the clinical trials and studies they did were on animals. And I know he put it on a horse. And within 20 minutes, and they did the infrared scans on the animals, so you could actually see all the different colors around, and you could see the inflammation is marked by the red, which was massive around this horse. Within 20 minutes, that had reduced after putting Aeon on.
Mm.
So 20 minutes, which is remarkable. And obviously that reduced around the body, but you still saw the heat around the heart because the heart, obviously most of the heat pumps then the blood around the body. And there was another little bit of interesting information here. 62% of the energy used to heat the blood comes from the heart, which I thought was quite an interesting point. So we need the heart. We need the heart to be warm, guys. We need a hot heart because if you've got a cold heart, obviously you're not going to be able to, the blood's just not going to flow. And how often do we feel that? You know, do you feel that your extremities, the tips of your fingers or your toes, particularly in the cold, go numb because the blood's not flowing?
Mm.
And the blood, we can also sort of say it's the energy that's not flowing. So this is why, you know, I mean, I'm going into slightly different techniques, but if we do Shinjin Jitsu, all these different energy techniques, you can bring that blood flow back into the extremities. It's the same when I used to work as a reflexologist. If you just worked on the toes for 10 minutes, I can't tell you how effective that was. Your body was just like bing, revitalized in 10 minutes, only working on the toes. So our extremities are an indication, if you like, of what else is really happening with the flow of energy, the flow of blood around the body. Okay, so back to Aeon specifically. Um, the most important thing we have to remember here is that Aeon reduces stress, which then reduces inflammation, which then increases your immune system so that you actually have better health. Okay, so it's really important we look at this whole big picture. So it's not just a matter of us slapping a patch on and thinking, oh, well, I'm okay now. The inflammation is going to go and I'm going to be as happy as Larry next door or whatever. Because it's like everything that we do, we need a balance. We need to understand what the underlying causes are that may be creating a sympathetic nervous system state, which is a stress state. which we don't want because when we are in that stress, the endocrine system doesn't work as well. It's not as effective. You damage the healthy cells and you get a break in the DNA, which then creates dis-ease.
mm,
So for us to really make the most of this patch is for us to increase our quality of life in all areas. So, for example, doing meditation, um, exercise, all the things that we know, but how many people out there are not doing it because they're stuck on the treadmill of doing. The treadmill of doing has to be in balance with the being. And that was one thing that my father always used to say to us, and it was a belief system I had to really get rid of, was if you sit down, you're lazy.
mm,
It was a massive thing because we were always having to do something. If you are sitting down, you were lazy. And that's how I was brought up. And my sister still really feels like that. She hates sitting down. She says, I hate sitting down. This is my sister in Germany. She's always going, 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 going. So it's really, really important that we have a balance between all these different things and how we see our life. Now, obviously, when we're talking about stress, we know that there is the dangerous bad stress, but there's also good stress. And we need to make sure that we have a balance of that as well, because if you are so chilled out in the parasympathetic nervous system, then actually that becomes a stress because the body's not moving, the body's not active. So, if you're lounging around in bed all day, like a lot of people don't move. I mean, I can't believe that because that's not my lifestyle, but I know there is a lot of people out there. They probably go to work, they sit in the car going to work, they sit at a desk all day and they get home and they sit down all evening, which I can't imagine because I have to get up and move. I've already done a morning walk. I will go out again later because that's just my lifestyle. So really think about where you are on this level of doing and being. If you think of the seesaw, we want to be bang in the middle where you've got that flow. Sometimes you're a bit more stressed, sometimes you're a bit more relaxed, but we want to have the balance because when you are in that, let's say, extended parasympathetic nervous system state so that you are so relaxed or you're staying in bed for 10, 12 hours a day, that is equally as damaging as being in the overactive state. So things that can also help as keeping this balanced state is exercise, is also fasting. Fasting is really, really good for the body because it clears out the damaged cells. So anybody that needs to fast, it's probably something I could actually end up doing, but I haven't done one
mm,
for ages, to be honest. But it is also a very good thing because that actually helps you to boost your immune system. And that's what we're talking about. When we're doing exercise, we're boosting in our heart, we're getting stronger lungs, we're getting stronger muscles. Okay. Now, the other thing that he talks about here, which is all to do with the Aeon and the stress and everything else, is the telomeres. Do you all know what your telomeres do? I didn't really understand the telomeres, I'll have to be honest. Let me just explain that a little bit. So the telomeres are like the ends of the chromosomes, and every time they get shorter actually when the cells divide. So when the telomeres then end up just disappearing. Now the telomeres are really crucial for us to keep us young and fresh and sort of reversing the age process as such. But when those telomeres actually disintegrate and they disappear, there's no cell division. So if we've got no cell division, you've then got another problem. So what we need to do is to keep the cells healthy enough to keep on dividing, which is what the stem cells help us to do because they go into any cell around the body to help them keep youthful and healthy. So we're clearing out the damaged cells, which reduce the aging, so that we can renew and regenerate the cells to improve our aging process as such. Does that make sense? So what he also said was, and I know you've heard this before, but just to give you another understanding of the peptides that are to do with this, but also the royal jelly. There was somebody he met, he said at a party when he was talking to all these scientists, that the bee, they wondered why that the queen bee lives 60 times longer than the worker bee. And it's because in that royal jelly, there is a certain peptide. Now, he didn't mention exactly what peptide, but I'm going to give you the amino acids that in a minute that are included in the Aeon, which makes up the peptides. And he said what they did was they injected a worker bee with this particular peptide, which is found and created in the liver. And that worker bee, with one injection of that, lived 5 to 6 times longer. And they realized it was because the queen bee eats a lot of this, or whatever they do, drinks a lot of this royal jelly. Now, by the age of 30, the production of this peptide actually declines. So you don't get the aging benefits of that. And if you wanted to take royal jelly, you would literally have to take 300 grams of that every day, of that which has got the peptide in it, over 20 hours of the day, which would cost you about $20,000 a month. So this is why, and this is how he created the Aeon. Okay. So what the Aeon also does, along with the X39, which is why they're such a good the combination together, is obviously it reduces the inflammations in the cells. Because if you're working with X39, that also has the ability to reduce inflammation. But obviously, it's a different peptide that's doing this in the Aeon. And this is where, from what I understand, is with stem cell therapy, when you're pumping stem cells into the body, why they don't always work is because very often those stem cells are actually working to reduce the inflammation, which makes sense, doesn't it? Because if they're working to reduce the inflammation, the ability of those stem cells then to separate and to engage as they are supposed to has actually been limited because all those stem cells are working to reduce the inflammation and there's no stem cells left to actually say, right, now I need to go and reproduce these wonderful cells that can divide and regenerate and reactivate the cells in a healthy way. So this is why it's really important for us to use the Aeon with the X39. So you reduce the inflammation, and then the X39 then can go into its and do its job to recreate those new stem cells. Okay. Um, Now, the other thing he was mentioning as well, when I was listening to something, was energy. The energy enhancer is not, and I think we need to be very clear. We'll talk about this obviously more when we do that patch, but the energy enhancer is not purely just for you to have more energy because you've got a busy day, or like me, I go out on my bike and I always put it on when I use that. The energy enhancer also supports the production of the mitochondria in the cells. So it's really important for us to actually remember that. Um, Now, the other thing, the one thing, and I know we mentioned this when we did this before, this is our second time around, but we're recording this. What triggered my eyes when I first saw the short bits of information about all these patches was this thing about SOD. You remember I told you about this? SOD, superoxide dismutase. Do you remember me telling you this before? Those of you that were on the call. SOD. So remember SOD, SOD. And I'd never seen this mentioned for years. But why it triggered my thinking and my eyes was because the reason I got into this work back in 91, in fact, it was earlier than that, was because I had a car accident. In fact, I had I had 3 car accidents. I had 2 accidents in one. Basically, I went into a car in front of me on the M25, and then I could see this BMW coming at full speed into the back of me. And I had 2 whiplashes in that accident. And then 3 months later, I had another one. So I had a really, really bad problem with my neck. And actually, it was all the pain down my arm, and I couldn't lift, and da da da. Doctors were telling me I'd have to put up with problems the rest of my life, etc., etc. This is in my 20s. And a friend of mine told me about kinesiology, and she did a Touch for Health. Anybody know Touch for Health? I don't know if you do. Session for me when I was on a trip with her, and I was blown away. So I basically went to her kinesiologist who fixed my neck in a couple of sessions, and she fixed it by giving me sod. So that's why my eyes were like, what? Because you don't hear about SOD, sodium oxide dismutase. And I was absolutely blown away. I still like to go to the doctors and tell them I had problems because I was trying to get the insurance. Now, what sod does, it helps to reduce the inflammation in the body. Okay, it's one of the top antioxidants. So this is why it is incredibly important that we also use the Aeon, because that is in the Aeon. I think it's also, we mentioned this in the glutathione. I think it's one of those in there as well, because that's also to do with um, reducing inflammation in the body. And it's also there to fight the free radicals. Okay, so it really does elevate superoxide dismutase. Now, there's another thing that he talks about, and as you can, how you can use Aeon. If people have got, I mean, this is what we, another thing we see a lot is knee problems. And there's one thing that has been used here with the Aeon, but also with the X39. Was it the X? No, it was the glutathione, is putting the Aeon on the outside of the knee and the glutathione on the inside of the knee. And that has actually been shown to regenerate the cartilage around the knee, which I think is quite incredible because I'm not sure what doctors will say, you know, you're never going to be able to replace that, etc., etc. So the most important thing, yeah, the peptide is actually, it's the AHKCU. That's the one that's produced in the liver, which is all about how to, you know, repair the tissue. It's about the inflammation, anti-inflammation, and also reducing the stress. Let me just see what else I've got here that I haven't already said to you. So let's just talk a little bit about inflammation. For those of you who may not know, the signs of inflammation, because I think sometimes we just don't look at our body in a way of actually knowing. So if you have got inflammation, what you might notice is you've got heat. We know it's, you know, you'll have pain. You might have redness, you might have swelling, you may have loss of function. So it's not always going to be pain that is going to give you those signals that you've got inflammation. Okay, so if you've got any of those and that is not dealt with, long-term inflammation can actually then start to add up to different symptoms that will affect your body in so many different ways. For example, we know it's pain. It could be fatigue. You could be overexhausted. It could be depression. It could be anxiety. It could be gastrointestinal issues on whatever level those are, whether it's constipation, whether it's diarrhea, whether it's reflux, whatever it is. It could be weight gain. It could be frequent infections. So think about what's going on for you. What is it that you hear people saying? It could be joint pain. So you're talking about rheumatoid arthritis. It could be numbness, tingling, limited range of motion, inflammatory bowel diseases. There are so many different things. It can get very depressing when you start looking at all this. Loads and loads of different things. So different foods that can cause or worsen that inflammation in people with any of these things that are going on that I've just mentioned, or any autoimmune disorders, we know number one, sugar is the biggest evil to our bodies. Refined carbohydrates, alcohol, processed meats, trans fats. Okay, so we really do need to make sure that our diet, as well as everything else, is in play. And also, as we all know, because we're all in the health business, but water is absolutely crucial that we drink enough water. And, I know with my father, with older people, they haven't been brought up to think that water's, something that we need to actually increase in our body or put into our body even, but it is really, really important because not only does that, as you well know, flush through the toxins out of the body, it is needed to go into the cells so that all these peptides can actually do their job as well. So it keeps a healthy function of the cells and the cells to be able to detoxify. So another thing about the SOD, because I just actually looked into this a little bit more, I want you to think of this as your internal fire extinguisher. Because what it does, it neutralizes the most damaging free radicals in the body, which is why it's so powerful. It is one of the body's most important antioxidant enzymes. So without this, or without enough of this, you get that oxidative stress, which obviously then damages your DNA, which leads into disease, it weakens your immune system, and then, of course, it ages your cells. And so, of course, David's message from all the work that he's done is how can we reverse aging? It's not about anti-aging, it's about how do we reverse the aging. And this is why, all his work is based on that, because he truly believes that we can live to way over 100 plus, 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 if we are not aging with this oxidative stress that's in the body and the inflammation, etc., etc. And the SOD, be no surprise here, which is really important for this anti-aging and for our stress levels, actually just declines with age. Okay, so if your stress is high or chronic, your need for the antioxidants, like the SOD, becomes even greater because it protects the brain. So it helps against the neuroinflammation and the cognitive decline. So think about people who might have Alzheimer's or dementia or forgetfulness. It doesn't even have to be as severe as that. Where are you with your brain? How sharp is your brain? It can respond to the skin. So if you don't have enough, your skin starts to break down, and we see the lines and the loss of elasticity, so that the collagen isn't as high as it used to be. And of course, we know that it's affecting the immune system. So think about all those inflammatory immune diseases that seem to appear. And of course, it does affect your joints and your connective tissue. Um, so really think about your overall health, or where do you have pain, or where do you feel that maybe there's inflammation, even if it's not painful, do you have inflammation? So just to see what else is from the Aeon's SOD supporting effects. Anybody who is dealing with chronic stress or burnout, this is number one. Anyone who is fatigued, have got brain fog, or sleep issues. Anyone who's in pain, inflammation, or autoimmune conditions. Anybody who has any visible signs of aging or skin concerns. And also anybody who has any nervous system imbalance. So is there trauma? Is there anxiety? Are you under adrenal fatigue? Well, I think we could probably all say we have got one of those at least, yeah? So what this patch is helping to do, apart from bringing in those happy hormones, is to stimulate your body's own production of the SOD, so your sodium oxide dismutase, so that it neutralizes the most damaging of those free radicals in your body. And when you've got when you're reducing that, you are going to be calmer, you are going to be healthier, you're going to be happier, and you are going to look, your skin's going to look better, your muscles are going to be stronger, everything. Okay. Does that make sense?
Mm.
It's really quite a phenomenal
Perfectly.
patch, isn't it?
Mm.
I'm just looking at what else is in the magical book here. So I'm going to tell you also the different peptides as well, or amino acids. Um, what else have we got here? I think I've covered it all. So enhances, precursor to dopamine, enhances your positive moods, which we've talked about. It supports balanced emotions. It also, something else I didn't actually mention, was supports heavy metal chelation, which is really important as well. Oh yeah, there was something else I wanted to say about the GABA. It increases the cysteine for keratin. Keratin is part of the skin and the hair, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that's why, you often hear a lot of people using the patches and saying, oh my God, my hair's just gone a lot thicker. I actually can honestly say to you, I'm pretty damn sure I had a bit of a white patch under here and it's not there. And I wasn't sure if it was the highlights, but my highlights are almost gone. And so I'm like, wow, that's quite phenomenal. And I've heard quite a lot of other people saying their hair has actually gone darker. So anyway, it increases serine for stress reduction and increases glutamine for the immune health and increases proline for calming. Now, there was another thing that I had. Let me just go back to my notes about GABA. Let me just see if was it GABA or was it DHEA? I've got so many notes and they are all sort of crossing over from each other. Let me just check through here. Um, and then we'll talk about where we can place it in a minute. Uh, no, I haven't got it here. Well, I must have written it in one of my other.
And you did mention last time that it was DHEA.
It is DHEA, yeah.
It stimulates DHA, which is the fountain of youth.
Mm.
Exactly, exactly,
And we need that for all our hormones.
exactly. And that's another thing that's really interesting to see because obviously it works with the endocrine system.
Mm.
I've obviously got so many notes that I can't even see in my own notes what I've got. But yeah, oh, here we go. I've got it here. I knew it was here somewhere. God. Okay, so Aeon, as you write, says elevates the DHEA, which also elevates your sex hormones, which is why endocrine system, yeah? So in men and women, while helping to balance the brain and reduce depression and stress-related challenges. So that's what it's also doing here. So this is why you can see this is an absolute must to use with the X39.
Mm.
The X39 is always going to work, but it's going to take longer. When you use these two together, you're putting them on steroids. It's like, right, let's get to work. You do your job and I'm going to do my job. And
Yeah.
so that they are working, as they say, it is the dynamic duo. Now, I was going to just tell you, whether you want to know it or not, I'm going to tell you about the amino acids that are stimulated by Aeon. Some of you will want to know, some of you won't, but I'm going to tell you anyway. Cysteine, glutamate, glutamine, proline, serine, and tyrosine. Now, all of those have got different qualities and obviously different things that they're doing in the body. So, for example, cysteine is a powerful oxidant in that increases collagen and keratin with the hair, for the hair, the skin, and the nails. Glutamate is the building block for the muscles, removes toxins. Ammonia supports the immune system, brain digestion, intestines, liver, and kidney health. Glutamine, glutamate, and glutamine. Sorry, that was glutamine that I just read you. Glutamate
Oh.
supports the memory. So learning increases the GABA. So very good. Remember, this is very good for any kids or adults who have ADHD.
Mm.
Okay, so this is also worth remembering. Proline is also good for the metabolism and for skin healing, for the cartilage, for immune system. Serene again is for the brain, stress reduction. And tyrosine is really important for synthesizing norepinephrine. God, norepinephrine. Okay, supports melanin, which is a pigment for hair and skin color, supports the adrenals, thyroids, and the pituitary. So you can see it's got masses of benefits for us. Positioning, either obviously on the back of the neck, so C7 or GV14, I think that's this, or you can do it on underneath the belly. I actually generally use that one, I don't know why, on liver 3, which is on the foot between the big toe and the little toe. So that's a big toe, it's when you come down to the metatarsal, that's liver 3. So it's literally 3 finger widths actually up from the toes as such. Makes sense? Other positions, Aeon. Does anybody wear it anywhere else?
Sometimes it be spleen.
You don't.
One for me on
Which one? Spleen 6.
Oh yeah,
Spleen 6, which is inner part of the ankle, 3 finger widths upside
just above the ankle. Yeah,
inside the ankle. You could use
on
it
the right.
on the right side. Yeah. You can use it on kidney 3, which is literally on the inside of the ankle bone. I do put it there as well sometimes.
Yeah,
so think about it. Kidney meridian is all about fear and anxiety. So if you are very anxious, and if you are a kidney person, so if you, when you are in a stressed state, think about this. We've talked about this before, but I'm just going to give it to you again. When you are stressed, think about what your response is. If you go into anxiety and fear and panic, you are more of a kidney person. If you go into more frustration, anger, feistiness, that would be a liver person. If you are more in that stress state, you just go into sadness and grief, that would be more lung. So for example, thinking about this patch, if you are somebody who gets very frustrated, liver 3 would be the good place for you to put it. If you are, for example, someone who gets very anxious, then I would try it on the kidney point, on the inside of the ankle. If we do right, that's large intestine. You can place it on here as well, large intestine 4, which is the elimination point. So that makes a lot of sense for Aeon to go in here. It's literally here. Large intestine 4, which is the meridian that comes off the index finger. This is called the Union Valley, and it's right in here. That is a point to release anything. You would never, ever, ever, ever use it if you were pregnant. So make sure you don't tell anyone, even with these, I don't know. But it's a very, very powerful point. So if you've got headaches, if you've got digestive issues, if you've got emotional stress, that would be a really good point maybe to put the patch. I don't particularly like patches on my hands. I don't know if anyone else uses them on here.
No, they come off so quickly.
Yeah, and I've used it on the heart one down here, down the side, and I don't really like it there either. So I tend to put them either on the body or I put them onto the legs, which is the body, obviously. The other place that's not mentioned, which I would recommend, is CV17, right in the middle of the sternum here, because that is known as the Sea of Tranquility. That is a really powerful point on the central meridian that you can use for calming. So if you're using this to come back down into the presence, CV17, I often put carnosine in that point. And that is actually no, they don't. They don't. CV17, yeah, they do say it's 17, but it's not down under Aeon. But there is no right and wrong. Go with where you feel you are drawn to. And what I would say is wherever you position the patches, try them out in that position for a few days before moving them to somewhere else. and really have an understanding of what that patch feels like and how you feel, because I truly believe that we've gone through this before as well, there are different places that are going to respond more quickly, possibly, or may respond with you in a different way to somebody else, depending on which acupressure point you put them on. Okay, how are we doing? 1:45. Has anybody got any questions about that? Anything else to add from your information? Anybody had really good results that they've noticed using this? Jackie, what about you?
Hi. So I had a flare up of a knee problem, which I got as a injury at school, but it's come like very rarely. I probably had it twice in my life since I was a teen. And during cold weather, I've worked out, it seems to sort of come through cold weather. And normally it would be a day of legs up and a week of literally before it felt like it was better. I had intense pain that night, and I put in the Aeon in the position on the knee where it was sore, but I put on the front of the knee, and had that overnight. And the next morning, when I went for my walk, my dog pulled, so I could feel the pull of it. But it was there, but it was, it was maybe a 5 or a 6. And anyway, once I let her off and I actually started getting the muscles warm, it was heaps better. That night, applied the Aeon to the back of the knee, because what I find is that the back of my knee used to bulge, which is
Oh, wow.
a bladder meridian. So what I
Yeah.
then did is I put it on the back, and it was then gone.
Wow.
Took a day and a half instead of a week.
That's amazing. Wow.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Wow. And you could again use possibly the glutathione as well with it.
Yeah. At the time, I wasn't using gluten. Well, I was, but I was using Numi.
Yeah.
So, and then other thing is that 2019, I started experiencing tingling in my right foot, where it was like my digit 2, 3, and 4. It was very difficult to know which ones they was sort of numbing. And so much so that one day when I was driving, I was scared to actually drive because I wouldn't have been able to put
Oh, wow.
on the pedal. Anyway, I've noticed it kind of goes on and off. Like when I walk, it sort of comes on, but I've noticed the last couple of days, it's kind of like almost gone.
Wow.
So
Gosh, that's incredible.
that's obviously the inflammation has taken that long to sort of work its way through on that point, because we're always on our feet, aren't we?
Yeah.
So and also, subconsciously or consciously, you're continually bumping your feet. You don't realize until you have a sore toe or something how often you actually.
Yeah, absolutely.
So they're constantly being sort of mishandled. Yeah,
Wow.
that was my sort of thing to.
Brilliant. Anybody else?
Well, what I've realised is that I haven't used Aeon for ages, and I really do need to use it, because I've noticed through the things that you've mentioned that things have slowed down in that healing process.
Interesting.
And that must be because I'm using X39, I'm using X49, I'm using glutathione, but I'm not been using
The
Aeon.
Aeon.
So I do need to use that again. But what I do want to ask, what you think, or anybody thinks, because of my knee and my ankle, would it be better to focus on one at a time or both at the same time by putting the patches on either the ankle or the knee because you were saying about the combination of the Aeon and glutathione, which I haven't done on the knee and the ankle,
Do you know what? This is
or
really
the X39 on there? Because yesterday I did do that. What did I do yesterday? I did X39 and what did I do? What was the other one? I can't remember now. I did two. One extra, put that on my knee. Oh, carnosine it was actually.
carnosine.
So what,
Okay, this is my
whatever you
thinking.
think.
And actually, this is what I was going to talk about before we leave is
Mm.
protocols. Because I'm
Yeah.
going to show there's another, yeah, I don't know if all of you have got the two manuals. There's two manuals with protocols in. And I think if anybody has got a specific issue, let's seriously work on a protocol to work with that issue with specific patches, because that way you are going to get a much, much better result. And I'm going to show this other one in a minute. So for you, Tony, what I would do, is it on the inside of the ankle, the outside of the knee? Where is it? Because obviously they're different meridians depending on inside,
Well,
outside,
that's the thing.
as you know.
That's yeah. So yesterday I put it on stomach meridian,
Okay,
one on
36.
stomach 36 and
Yeah.
one above the knee. I don't know what that acupuncture point is above the knee. I just went with where it was hurting, where my
Okay.
weaver
Okay.
said to put it actually.
Sure.
Um, but for my ankle, it's across the top and round to the bones. It's all
So that
across
would
the
be
top, and
stomach. Would that be stomach a sort of
it's a
more
whole,
middle? It's
it
the
will
whole
cover
thing.
all of them. So I would weave to see where they
I
go.
was going to say I would actually muscle test or I would dowse to
Yeah.
see what is the priority,
Mm.
and maybe that you need to have,
Mm.
a couple more. You might need the energy enhancer as well. So, because to shift the energy
Mm.
out, I don't know, it'd be worth looking at that. But what I want to share with you is, and I don't know if anybody's actually seen this. Hang on one sec. Okay, I want to show you this. Um, okay. Oh, this is covered of ads. Let's try. Okay, can you see that?
Yeah.
If I can get rid of all these ads, it's unbelievable. There's another one there. Hold on a sec. It's getting rid of Zoomy and get rid of those ads. Has anyone seen this one?
No.
This is just, I mean, look at this. So it gives you all the how to do this, da 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 da. But it actually goes in, so it's going to show you the points. Um, I've skipped along a couple of pages a little bit too quickly there, but you can see all the points here, and it's
Mm.
showing you different protocols. But this, I mean, if I could print this out, I'd love to print it out, but it is a lot of pages, so I don't think it's going to get printed out.
Where was this one from, Fiona? Not
I got
seen
it from
this one.
Deborah. I don't know who's done this, but this is what I think. If you have got a specific issue, let's work with a protocol specifically for that issue. So you've got a lot of stuff in here. And it's similar to the other one, the self-healing manual.
Can you share the link for this one?
Yeah, I will do. If anybody else wants it on the, I don't know if I can share it in the WhatsApp. I'll see if I can share it in the WhatsApp. But you can see there's lots of different things here. So, instead of just sticking the patches on and slapping them on anywhere and just thinking, oh, well, they're going to do this or that or whatever, why not let's set up a protocol, whatever it is, even if it's just that you want an energy boost. Okay, so kidney 3,
Mm.
really powerful point, because we know the kidneys are the mother of all evil, the mother of all organs. They are the creme de la creme.
Mm.
Must make sure that your kidneys are vitalized.
Mm.
You could just do this. Okay. So this is quite phenomenal at all these things. Boost your immune system. There are some funny ones. I did see a positioning where they've literally got it on the tip of the nose. I was like, not so sure about that.
Mm.
Um, but there's a lot of different things here. So I would ask you all to really think about what is it you specifically want to work on, and really make the most of the patches that you've got and what we can use them for, so that you are specifically, telling the body, right, I want to work on this now, or this, or whatever it is. And when you set that intention, I seriously think that that's also putting that intention into the patches, into the body, and saying, right, this is what I need to work on. What are you going to do to help me? Make sense?
Mhm.
And if anybody wants to chat over it, we can chat over it. Okay? Appetite control. I mean, I use, which ones are they saying? Glutathione, energy enhancer. Yeah, interestingly, put that on twice. This carnosine here. I always use now, whenever I go out, I use the X49 and I use the energy enhancer on when I go out for my bike. I mean, yesterday, what did I do? About 23 miles yesterday. And I can't tell you the difference. It really is quite amazing. So for exercise and stimulation, but it's not like, and also the other thing that I noticed with the X49, I really like the X49. I know we're not talking about that yet, but it is a really good one for the vitality, the strength in your body. I notice that a lot. And especially when you use it with the energy, it's really good. So, Tony, I would actually, going back to you with that question, I would douse and I would see what the priority is and let us know, because whatever protocol you're using could help anyone else, because knees and ankles, they come up for all of us at different times,
Yeah.
don't they?
Can I also suggest the ice wave patch?
Yeah.
The I put it on K1 on the back of the
Underneath the feet.
and you know you can keep it there for 24 hours or something. And I've been in and out of the sea, walking on the sand, and it really stays very good. When I first put it on, I know it says in the book 10 seconds and all that, but it was more like 10 minutes. But I could almost feel it coming up the legs. I don't know what it was coming up the legs, but it was like, go away any aches and pains feeling.
Wow.
It's really good.
It's
Maybe
good.
that's something to try, Tony.
But that's, yeah. I mean, have you used that one on it, Tony?
I did when I first did this, and I have used it for other things, but I found other patches were better for me
Yeah.
than the ice wave. Yeah,
It is all individual, isn't it?
it
It
is
is
definitely
individual.
all
But that
individual.
kidney point, I think, it is a very powerful
Kidney
point.
is a very powerful point.
It's a
So
very
I've definitely
powerful
put
point.
patches under there before.
Yeah.
Yeah, including the
But I
end.
don't use it daily or anything like that. It's
No.
just when I woke up and felt stiffness. And
Yeah. No, lots of people have great success with the ice wave patches. I've just not found that. I've found others better for me.
Do you know what I think that might be, Tony? Is it's almost the ice wave is really just to get rid of the pain
Yeah.
and to calm those, those that nervous system down from whatever it's stimulating. It's too much energy going in it. It's not actually not using the word cure,
Damaged areas.
working on the damaged areas.
Yeah.
And so as the emergency ice wave is really good, but then you want to go back in and say, right, now I need to clear the inflammation and I need to boost the stem cells, which is why you've got the Aeon and then the X39, but also maybe the glutathione, because obviously we know that that's actually taken the toxins out of the body as well. So I think it's working on different levels there, which is probably why that doesn't work for you.
Yeah, I think so, because it's a
On a
different
deeper level that you need the healing now.
Yeah, yes, exactly. And I didn't use it Aeon for a while after I'd fallen, because the inflammation's important for the healing process in the beginning, isn't it?
Yeah, of
That
course.
you've got to be careful when you're getting rid of inflammation. Is the inflammation there for a reason that we need it to support
Exactly that.
healing?
Exactly.
So yeah,
Because we do need inflammation.
yeah,
There is good
exactly,
inflammation when it's
exactly.
actually healing the body. We just want to make sure we've got the balance between understanding what is the good inflammation and
Yeah,
actually the inflammation that really is toxic to the body.
exactly.
And especially if that's consistent. And you know, how many people go around and they've got swelling? You see it in their legs and
Yes,
it's
yeah,
like for years.
yeah,
And
real.
you just think, oh my God.
Mm,
Anyway, I'm going to stop the recording now. So if anybody's got any questions about protocols or anything else, put it into the group because it helps all of us.
yes.
And next week, I think we'll go back and do X39 so that it's on recording and see if we can find, we know a lot about X39, but I'm going to see if I can find some other things about X39. Okay, so I'm just going to stop the recording now.
Brilliant.